Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you may be throughout the world. But welcome to Personal Transformation. Today we have a really great podcast for you today because we are going to be talking about our 2021 Transforming Trauma Conference. And obviously, because of COVID, we were going to be virtual, but we got a week full of jammed information, of stuff that it's going to help you if you choose to come on and come aboard and listen. And we have some great workshops, is what I'm trying to say. But we're gonna be here today. I have Maria Barcelos producing the show, and with great honor, I have Art Lockhart, the founder of the Gatehouse, and he's going to talk about the stuff as well. And first, I'm going to pass this over to Maria, and we are going to do, or rather, Maria is going to do a land acknowledgement before we move on to today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stuart, and hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Welcome, everyone. We acknowledge that the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Thanks so much, Stuart.
Welcome. And now, I guess I'd like to just pass over to Art, and maybe Art can give us, talk to us a little bit about the conference. And actually, this will be the 11th conference for folks that don't know about this. My 10th, so I'm quite happy and honored to be here as well. So, Art, always wonderful to see you. I can't wait to do this in person, obviously, but always great to see you. And maybe you can talk about the conference and how it's built up to what it is today. And
I'm delighted to do that, Stuart. It is quite amazing to think that this is our 11th International Transforming Trauma Conference into Triumph. And I'm thrilled about it, that to think that when it first started, there was a few people. We went to the Toronto Police College where we would host it every year over the years. And to see it continue to grow, that people from literally around the world have been involved in that conference, from Nigeria to Bolivia to England, and throughout the States and Canada. So I think that, in a way, is almost kind of a pretty strong illustration of collaboration when you're having that many people being connected by the power of voice, especially for the voices that have been taken away from so many, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people, to have their voice heard through these types of conferences is really, really quite powerful. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, and talking about growth now internationally, like in the beginning, I'm sure it wasn't like that. So
Yeah, that's right.
So how did you pull that together and bring it like it has? I know it's been stages over the years, and
Yeah.
a lot of work on your behalf to do this. So how did that come about?
I honestly think it's simply it's the straightforward act of reaching out to someone, to genuinely connecting with another human being, just one other person, and no matter where they are on the planet, that if you feel that you can make a connection with that other person, that person then, in talking to you, says, oh, I know of another person. I'll give you a very concrete example. Just yesterday, I believe that coffee shops and libraries are some of the best places in the world to meet people and sit and have a conversation. So this is about the conference in a way. So yesterday I go and I'm having a coffee with a person who has been involved in the Gatehouse. As we are talking, I'm sharing some ideas about what would be happening at the Gatehouse and about the another initiative that the Gatehouse is doing, a global poetry initiative. This person then says to me, "Oh, there's another person who would be really interested in your the idea of the global poetry project that the Gatehouse is working on." So then now that person is connected. So now we have three people. Where we started with one, we now have three. that person then says, I've got another friend who's involved in this initiative or could be involved in this initiative. And that's how it goes. So one person, one person, one person. At the start of many of our conferences, I would ask people to stand up, turn to another person in the conference and say, hello, my name is, and I'm glad that you were here. And just when they do that, what tends to happen is people reach out, their hand is there, and in that split second, there's this space, right, between the two hands. And I think that's really magical because that space is about to be connected by two people who may not even know each other. And they're actually shaking hands and saying, thank you for being here. And that's what we have to keep doing, reaching out, connecting, thanking people for being here. And then it keeps on going and going.
That's awesome, and it has. I mean, I witnessed this as it's grown throughout the years, and every year I'm amazed by by the guest speakers that the staff have organized, such as Maria and Paula, Stephanie, over the years, and students too, because there's so many people involved in this process. It's not an easy process to organize all this together. And I cannot not mention the students because the students have been a big part of this as well. It's students from many different colleges and universities throughout the Greater Toronto area. I must put that in as well. So, excuse me. So over the years, and now that this, I mean, Gatehouse International, basically. Now, is there anything that really stands out? I mean, not that they all don't stand out, because they do, because they're all in part and part of this process of reaching out and getting people to come and express their voice, as you pointed out. But is there any country in particular that you've seen growth, I guess, in this manner that we talk about voice, where things have actually started to change because of voice, where voices were not found before?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that stand out right off the bat. One is your voice, Stuart, and what you were doing on your podcast. That has grown out of all of the work that everybody has been doing, in particular what you are doing. It is phenomenal. And the fact that I guess people can go through the Gatehouse to find out about the World Health Organization film that collects voices from around the world. They did a 13-minute documentary on people who have been sexually harmed in their lifetime. And you were one of the people that they interviewed in that really, really meaningful film. So to see now that because of you, the Gatehouse is now connected to the World Health Organization, that is incredibly powerful. A second point that stands out for me is I think it was about the last time we were actually to have the conference where we're in person, not a virtual conference. So it may have been 3 years ago, I think it was. And a woman named Charmaine Leverin, who was part of the Gatehouse as well, did a presentation about her efforts to have the provincial government here in Ontario, here in Canada, to have passed legislation that would allow for curriculum dealing with childhood sexual abuse to be integrated into the school programs in Ontario. And this is a woman who is also experiencing ALS, and her system is shutting down. Her body is shutting down. Yet, that human being was able to hold a rally outside of Queen's Park recently. And while she cannot speak now she speaks, but with the use of with the aid of a computer. And her voice comes through this computer. She's that body here. Her body is that now impaired by this illness. But what she was doing was sitting out there in front of Queen's Park in the rain to gather people together to say, we need to have voice for all of the people who have been harmed by childhood sexual abuse. That is remarkable to me that is going on. And now the legislation is going in for a third or fourth reading, I believe. So it's pretty powerful when you think that all of us, everybody connected to the Gatehouse in some measure, is now connected to the World Health Organization, is now connected to efforts to have all the schools in Ontario have a curriculum base on the children who are, or to help children who have been harmed by sexual abuse. So those two things stand out. I think they're pretty amazing.
No, thank you. And one thing I should add to Charmaine's story is that she's been working on this for about 7 years.
Yes.
That's correct, right?
Yeah.
And she's done some amazing work. And kudos for her for doing this, because nobody else is taking this on themselves to do it. So I think this is very important, not only for what's going to happen in Ontario when this finally goes through, for all her hard work that she's done, but I think it'll be a great precedent for the other provinces to follow to do the same. And hopefully this will be tenfold, 100-fold, across Canada, maybe US, since they're our neighbor, Mexico, for example, speaking on this part of the continent, and then other parts of the world as well. So it has potential of growing exponentially.
Just on that point, at the World Health Conference, one of the speakers there was talking about this very thing, about curriculum, and I believe they were talking about the curriculum in the United States, as I understand it, and that this is what they feel is really important. They were talking in the context of having a curriculum based on the power of story, creating the space and the environment for children to be able to talk about and ask questions about this whole issue of childhood sexual abuse. Now, can you imagine a world where the focus is in our education systems, every education system in the world, to create the opportunity for a child to be really strong, really, really strong. And so part of that strength would be, how do you deal with turbulence of someone trying to harm you? What is the way that you respond to that? Do you even know how it's happening to you? That's what makes a person strong. And to me, that's what we need to, that's part of the conference that's coming this week, is the power of collaboration. How do we all work together to build a curriculum? It's just one part of this, the whole story about abuse. But how do we all collaborate on a curriculum that would give that child that opportunity to let people know what's happening to them? Because I'm aghast and I'm surprised that we still don't have that done in our school system to this day. That there's nothing formally integrated into the curriculum that will help a child deal with one of the most traumatic experiences they can have in their lifetime. And we're doing it now through you and everybody else talking about this, which I think is very powerful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is going to be a horrible metaphor that I'm using as an example, but it's kind of like our roads and infrastructure, using that as a basis. I mean, living where we live, we already know that it's way behind. And I can go to many other centers in the world and say the same thing. It's way, way behind. And it's kind of like our social issues, such as childhood sexual abuse, like we're talking about. Not just that, but other issues, outstanding issues like homelessness are the things that come to my thought process the most, right? Have not been touched upon and are far behind. Sure, other countries are setting better examples, but nevertheless, like the big seven is what I'll focus on right now, the group of seven. And we are supposed to be we're industrialized. We apparently have all this money and we have all this knowledge and technology, but yet we are like so far behind. And I mean, I could get in and ramble on about this for hours, but capitalism, government, all kinds of things are standing in our way. And this is one of the things that we kind of talked about at the WHO conference is we have these things that are in our way and they're slowing us down. Bureaucracy that's in our way. I mean, money, capitalism, as I pointed out just a second ago, being part of it, but we need to fix that and change that so it's more streamlined. And I don't know when that's going to happen. And I'm really looking forward to the time that it does happen.
I think the opportunity for it to happen is through people such as yourself, Maria at the Gatehouse, that people who are saying, how do you create a space for somebody's voice to be heard? and then responded to. That, I think we all often, you're right about capitalism in the context of we give more attention to money than we do to our own children. We, in our culture, we sell children. We traffic children around the world for money. When would that stop? How will that stop? Children are treated as objects, as a commodity to be bought and sold in this world. That goes on. Somewhere along the line, somebody has to say, that is an absolute horror to have that happen. What are the steps that we can take right now that would bring that to an end? The most powerful one that we can take is to connect with a human being, to honestly connect with another human being, and simply say to them that we are in this together. We're going to work together. We're going to be with you. We're not going to do things for you, but we're going to be with you, and we'll collaborate together. That's what we need to be doing. And again, I think teaching children in our schools is the way to go. And then that grows into, they become the next group of adults, right? If I may say it this way, I guess you can see the theme statement for the conference. And when I wrote it, I began by saying, when a person is sexually abused as a child, they disappear. The child within them disappears. Their voice is taken. Then they disappear because their voice is taken away. They don't know what to say, how to say it. They're afraid to talk about what happened to them. And when that happens, the sense of self goes off balance. So the person really is not, they feel differently than before they were abused. And then if they do come forward, really beautiful, well-intentioned people, I heard one person talking about this recently. They talk about the issue, the abuse, but not the person overall. In other words, the sexual abuse becomes the story only and not the whole person. So therefore, we start to put that person who's been harmed into a structure, whether it's a therapeutic structure or a judicial structure, that fits into that structure rather than being and talking with that person as a whole person. That's what we need to do. And there's a wonderful line from a group of guys, singers, a band back in the 60s, that said about teach your children well. It's a beautiful line and a wonderful, wonderful song by a group called Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Teach your children well. Teach our children well. And that, to me, is what we want to be engaging in, is how do we teach our children well so that they can face any kind of turbulence that comes their way and see them as a whole person. That is absolutely imperative, that they're not just a victim. They're not just somebody who is going to go to the police station to give a statement. People have talked about when you are victimized, the other thing that happens besides disappearing, losing your voice and having your sense of self thrown off is you wait. You wait in courtrooms, you wait in police stations, you wait at hospital waiting rooms, you wait at the school office, you wait at the therapist's office, you wait. And so that your story is written in the context of somebody else's way of responding to you. The beauty of something like the Gatehouse and what you do, Stuart, as a facilitator, is there's no waiting. Have you ever noticed that? When people come to the Gatehouse, they go right into the Gatehouse and they go right into a group session. There's no long-term waiting, right? If there's any waiting, that's when everybody in the circle is taking a collective breath and just checking in together, not alone. You don't check in alone. You check in with everybody in that room. That's an amazing thing when you think about it. It's so, in that process, uh, there's some key elements. I could speak to them later if you want. But anyway, I went on quite a bit there. So
No,
sorry.
no, that's quite all right, and those are all important thoughts and ideas in this process, and that need to be talked about, because a lot of times they just think it's a process and
Yeah.
a number and that's
Yeah.
it. But and I love what you said about the gatehouse, because that's really what it's all about. Yes, there is a process to get started, but it's not like you would think it is. It's not like your typical other organizations such as hospitals, police departments, government agencies. You come in, you do a simple intake, and to make sure that we're suited for each other, to help each other, and then the process starts. It's pretty simple. And and from my own experience, not just as being a facilitator, but doing the groups, it's experience that I could never ever could have possibly imagined that happened to help me in a way that I ever thought possible, because I always had this, or, you know, and the gatehouse allowed me to actually find a voice to where I am here today. So for that, I'll ever be grateful. And also for the opportunity to show others that they don't have to do this either. It's a beautiful space in that group. Our 2 hours together with our 15-minute or 5-minute coffee break, but sometimes you might even get some great cookies at the house. I miss that so much. But nevertheless, your voice is heard, and that's just the beginning of a new beginning, as far as the way I look at it. Right. So awesome for sharing that. I know we're getting on for time.
Okay.
And you have I know Maria and I want to quickly, I shouldn't say quickly, but go through the guests that we have, guest speakers that we have throughout the week. Now, is there anything else you want to say before we jump onto that?
Just one quick comment is that the Gatehouse is working to create the Gatehouse Global Poetry Project, and it's to have poems from around the world by people who have been harmed and are working through their harm and transforming their harm into triumph. And that's one of the pieces that we're working on right now. We'll be speaking about it, pardon me, at the conference on Monday, and it's exhilarating what's happening there. So again, we're trying to, in a way, build a quilt created out of words that wraps its sound around people when they're having a really difficult time. So that is something else that we're working on as well, and we'll see that at the conference.
Thank you so much, Art. And also, maybe after the conference, if your time allows it, maybe we'll get you to come back on again, and maybe we can reprieve and talk about the events that happened through the conference. And, and I'd love your thoughts on that, because I know I'll be part of it a little bit, but I'll be watching through the whole thing through. And I really, really would appreciate any of your thoughts for the conference this year, moving forward for our conference next year. So I greatly appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful time, Stuart. Take good care.
Thank you for coming here today.
Yeah. Bye-bye now.
Bye now. And Maria. I can't hear you though.
Oh, okay, great. Here's Stuart. I figured it out. I was like, wait, my microphone's on mute. What else is new, right? Almost 2 years into a pandemic, and I'm still muted.
I know the feeling.
Hashtag Zoom problems, hashtag streaming problems. Thanks, Stuart.
So that was great that Art came on here and gave his thoughts in regards to the conference coming up, and it's a beautiful thing. And again, I'm ever so humbled to be part of this process, and in this process, I've gotten growth out of it too. And I didn't even. It's funny how things work out that way, right?
Me too, Stuart. You're not alone in that. Like if you were to ask me, 10 years ago, oh, you're going to be doing some live streams on Facebook, I'd be like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's been exponential growth on both our parts. I'm really glad to work alongside you and be on this journey with you, Stuart. And again, thank you, Arthur Lockhart, founder of the Gatehouse, for spending some time with us today. Arthur's going to be back on Monday. We start off the conference on Monday at 11 a.m. with our Gatehouse panel. We have Sabra Desai, our board chair, who will be joining us. Paula Cordero, program coordinator, various programs at the Gatehouse. Carol Smith, one of our board members, who's going to be talking about her experience with poetry. And Arthur was talking about our global poetry project. And of course, Stuart Thompson is going to be there as part of that panel as well, sharing all the good work that he's been doing actually with male survivors. And I won't say much more because you're going to announce and talk about all the great efforts that you're doing, Stuart, with men and some services that we've introduced at the Gatehouse specifically for male survivors. So that gets us started at 11 a.m. On Monday, and there's still spaces to register. So I'm just going to put the link up on the screen. If you go to thegatehouse.org/conference21 is where you register for the event. It is a $35 registration fee, and it is fully tax. We issue a tax receipt for the full amount. Bear with me here. And then we're going to move on to Monday at 1 o'clock. I'm excited to spend some time with Kelsey LaRue. She is the program coordinator, Black Peer Education Network at Black Women in Motion. And they're going to have their own event on supporting survivors of sexual assault as well the following week. And I'm going to share a lot of information about those events coming up on our social media pages. Again, the power of collaboration, right? We want to share as many events and things that are happening in our community that are on the same or very similar subject line of what we do at the Gatehouse. And then our great Nicola, who's going to be at 5 o'clock doing some yoga. So the conference is focused on collaboration, healing, best practice measures, but we also are integrating self-care practices into the event throughout the week. So Nicola is going to start us off with yoga at 5 o'clock, and it is a 20-minute hip and heart flow to release stress and anxiety. Gentle, very gentle. You do not have to be a yoga guru to attend Nicola's workshop. She's very trauma-informed, very gentle yoga flow. So definitely don't miss that. Stuart, do you want to say a little bit more about the other workshops that are happening?
Okay, so Tuesday, November the 16th at 11 o'clock, we have trauma and mental health are rebooted in your nervous system. So I'll let you explain, obviously, a little bit more about that and our guest.
For sure. That's Avdeep Baharan. She is a somatic experiencing practitioner in training, and she does follow a lot of the work by Peter Levine about mind-body connection and how trauma is rooted and stored in our nervous system. So she educates us on the different parts of the nervous system. And I won't say much more about that because I don't want to give away the information, but she takes us through some really gentle activities related to experiencing our mind-body connection and how our body holds on to trauma. And then some of the activities help us release some of that nervousness or stuckness or pain even that we feel in our bodies. So I'm excited.
Wonderful lady as well. Yeah, right. And that same day, Tuesday at 1300 or 1 o'clock, we have a therapist panel, and we have lots of guests. Maria.
We have the therapeutic power panel. So they are therapists by their profession. We have Deb Mayberry, who is a spiritual psychotherapist, also a peer facilitator at the Gatehouse. Sherry Jackson, who is a certified addictions counselor and also a peer facilitator at the Gatehouse. Catherine Junn, who is a trauma-informed relational therapist in clinical training at this time. And we have Rob Hawkins, who's a registered psychotherapist, certified practitioner in psychodrama, sociometry, and group psychotherapy. Rob's been in the field for many, many years. I'm super excited to have him as part of the panel. Last but never least, we have Jessica Field back, who Stuart and I did an interview a couple of weeks, or maybe a week or two ago. Talking about art therapy and poetry to help heal trauma. So super excited about that panel. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, November 16th. And again, the link to register, if you haven't done so already, is there on the screen, thegatehouse.org/conference21.
And finally, for Tuesday, November the 16th at 1700 or 5 o'clock, again, we are going to be talking about art therapy and creativity. So, and wonderful person going to be heading out.
Exactly. Ashton Ford, registered psychotherapist, also co-founder of Full Circle Art Therapy Center. And we've had a wonderful partnership with Full Circle for over the years. So they're going to be talking about art therapy and different approaches that are utilized in art therapy, and take us through some activities using art. So if you're joining us for that workshop, you'll need just some crayons, some paper, a pen or pencil, because we do some activities that are art therapy related.
And that's an awesome program. And I've done both the programs at the house. Those are extensions of my continuous work. And Lacey is an awesome lady, and she knows her stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. So moving on to Wednesday, November 17th, we're starting off with mindfulness and meditation.
Exactly. So here's another self-care one, right? So if you're, whether you're a trauma survivor or not, I think everybody needs some mindfulness and meditation in their life. And we're going to have our wonderful Andrea Robbins Skinner, who is a facilitator, yogini, mindfulness guru. She also offers monthly meditation workshops through the Gatehouse as well. So if you're interested in those, it's thegatehouse.org/meditation. But she's going to be doing some mindfulness meditation with us, mindful breathing. Her workshops are amazing and super peaceful and gentle as well. So if you're new to mindfulness and meditation, it'll be a great introductory workshop for yourself.
And add too, folks, if you haven't noticed already, throughout the whole process, we've only got to Wednesday, but every day there's something to do with your mind and your body. It's not just about trauma, but it's about your mind and body, about helping you get past that. So I encourage you to join us, and I guarantee it'll help you in some way. Okay, so Wednesday again, the 17th at 6 o'clock or 1600, we have Canadian Center for Child Protection.
Sorry, sir. Just want to correct that. It's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Center for Child Protection. I know military time, right? It can be confusing.
Yes, I can't help it.
I know, me too. So yeah, we have Lindsay Loeb from the Canadian Center for Child Protection. If you don't know who they are, they're an organization in Canada that helps generate awareness. They do a lot of research and amazing research and collaborations with community organizations that are helping survivors, right? So they have a national survey on survivor experiences, for example. Last year, they did the presentation talking about online predators and the prevalence and different collaborations they've had to help victims of online abuse, so online sexual abuse. So just interesting. They're going to talk a little bit more about that and what they've learned from those experiences and from those research projects. I'm really looking forward to connecting with Lindsay again and seeing what they've learned in this past year.
Awesome. So now moving on to Thursday, November the 18th. We're starting off at 11 a.m. in the morning. We have eating disorders. We'll be talking about eating disorders from Sheena's Place, which has helped me in the past as well, without saying, well,
wonderful. Thank you, Stuart, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, definitely. Caitlin Axelrod, and this year she's bringing on Miranda Pecoraro. She is a MSW student who is helping with the presentation. So they're talking about eating disorders. And a lot of times we find that survivors of child sexual abuse may develop eating disorders, whether bulimia, anorexia, combination, overeating or binge purging, all kinds of different classifications of eating disorders. They're going to be talking about releasing shame and blame, from those experiences, because there's a lot of shame tied to that. So we're really excited to have them back again this year. Last year's presentation was phenomenal. Thanks, Stuart.
And for the last part of the day, again at 5 o'clock or 1700, we have I'll let you explain it.
Dr. Margaret McKinnon.
Yeah.
No worries, Stuart. She's Homewood Care and Mental Health and Trauma, Associate Professor and Associate Chair Research, Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neurosciences at McMaster University. She is one of the presentations I'm so looking forward to, talking about PTSD and how prevalent it is, and some of the treatments out there for PTSD. And a lot of survivors, again, have a diagnosis or have PTSD without a diagnosis, but they are experiencing PTSD or complex PTSD, CPTSD. So I'm really excited to hear about what she's been doing in the field, because she is a guru in her field.
And once things settle down, Maria and I have already talked about this, but we are going to come back and we are going to be talking about the difference between CPTSD and PTSD to further extent. Anyway, we're going to come back and do a podcast about that. And I'm actually looking forward to that. And finally, for Friday, November the 19th, starting at 11 a.m., what do we do with memory?
Wonderful. Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, that's a poetry workshop, and it's being run by Carrie George from the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University. And Carrie has sent over some prompts and some descriptors that we're going to be using in that workshop to help process trauma through the power of writing in a poetic or poetry form. And you don't have to be a poet. You don't have to understand structure or different types of poetry to attend that workshop. It's just bring a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, and Carrie's going to be giving us some prompts to start writing. So I'm really excited to see that, because oftentimes, even in our phase 2 group, survivors are invited to write out their story and see how the power of their narrative can help them heal as well. Thanks.
I'm looking forward to that as well. And then finally, at 1 o'clock, we're going to be talking about boundaries. And
yep. So we have Lucy Bruno from Voice Found, and she will deliver the session partially in French as well for our French-speaking attendees. So we are talking about boundaries. What are they? How to establish them, and how to release some of the feelings that sometimes we may experience with establishing boundaries. Oftentimes survivors will experience some shame, guilt, apprehension, fear, and fear of rejection, things of that sort when they're establishing healthier boundaries, because the boundaries have been violated. So it's difficult to get started, but with support, with the language, with practice, it is possible to establish safe and healthy boundaries.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to that as well, because I often talk about boundaries, my own boundaries, not just my self-imposed boundaries for myself, but towards others. So I'm sure a lot can relate to that with what, especially what we're talking about here. So I'm sure people will get something out of this that will help them in their healing process. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. So that pretty much brings us to the closing of the conference. So is Nicola not closing off with something in the end? Is that right, or am I wrong?
No, only on the Monday. We have
Only on the Monday, okay.
5 p.m. Yeah, gentle yoga flow at 5 p.m. on Monday. So we want to ease off the conference with 12 workshops this year, as opposed to 14 last year. I was trying to keep it to 6 to 8, but then I'm like, oh, we have more people want to help out and be part of this. And we're so grateful to every single partner. We're super grateful to the Department of Justice for sponsoring the event as well. It is National Victims of Crime Week next week as well.
Now that's really awesome. And I really appreciate you coming out today to do this, because I do, you have things to do at home. You do have a life besides what you do for work and care for, but it's awesome that we're here today, and we got art out here today as well. So I think I just would like to end it off in saying thank you and so much gratitude towards you, Maria. I appreciate you so much for what you do for me and for the community. It's awesome, and I only wish you nothing but self-care for yourself today.
Likewise, Stuart. Thank you so much for hosting this.
And everybody out there who's listening or watching, in this case, have a great day. And one thing I'm going to point out: every day this week, I'm going to do a podcast, at least one, for one event each day, all the way through till Friday. And so if you missed it, you can always come back and listen to it. And none of that, but it'll also all through since it's a webinar, it'll be on like a YouTube, Facebook. So you can't miss it. If you don't want to listen to it audio, you can listen to it video. Anyway, the choice is yours, but I'm just letting you know that it'll be out there for you in the future if you just happen to, if you works out that you're working and your schedule won't allow it, you can always come back and watch it later. Folks, I bid you a good weekend. Remember, self-care, take care of yourself. And I bid you a good weekend, and we'll see you Monday. Thank you. Goodbye.